Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum. Well, here I am back again, and in this video I will be addressing some alleged anachronism present in Islamic sources pertaining to Masjid al-Aqsa. So the first question is, what is an anachronism? So anachronism is basically some historical error. For example, if somebody says that George Washington was amazed to see the Titanic ship, George Washington was amazed to see the Titanic ship. So that would be an anachronism, because these two entities existed in different time in history. Alright, so coming back to the arguments of the detractors, so they would say, pertaining to the night journey of Prophet ﷺ, al-Isra al-Miraj, the night journey, they would say Prophet ﷺ was taken from Masjid-ul Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. Then they would say at that time Masjid al-Aqsa was already destroyed by the Romans around 500 years ago. So they would ask, how can Prophet ﷺ be taken from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa when there was no Masjid al-Aqsa? I hope you understand the argument. So now, here is my simple response to this. So first of all, we need to understand what masjid is. What masjid is. So masjid basically comes from the word sujud, that is prostration. And masjid is somewhere where prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is done, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worshipped by people. So that place is technically called masjid. So masjid does not necessarily need to be a massive building with the chandeliers and some fine carpets. So masjid can also be any place where people gather to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it be surrounded with some fence or some stones or maybe some small wall. So that would also be called masjid. When Prophet ﷺ was taken to Masjid al-Aqsa, of course, there was no building there. There was no structure of mosque there. So what was there? It was the location where the mosque was previously built, where the Jews used to gather and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that location would still be called masjid. And of course, something similar can also be found in the Bible, Book of Ezra chapter 2, verse number 68, and the Book of Jeremiah chapter 41, verse number 5. So in those passages, there was no temple there, but still they called that location as temple. And just to be clear, I'm not seeking any validation from Bible. I'm just highlighting the inconsistencies of those people who bring such silly argument. I hope it's clear so far, inshallah ta'ala. Now moving on. So the second argument that the detractors bring is from hadith, and that hadith is muttafaq alayh, i.e. found in both Bukhari and Muslim. So the authenticity is agreed upon, no doubt about that. Okay, so basically the hadith is saying, Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu, he was asking Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about which was the first mosque built on earth. Prophet ﷺ said, it was Masjid-ul Haram at Mecca. Then Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu asked Prophet ﷺ, which was next? He said, Masjid al-Aqsa at Jerusalem. He asked him that what was the time in between. Prophet ﷺ replied, 40 years. And the hadith continues. And of course, in Quran we also read that the first house of worship to be built was at Bakka, i.e. Makkah. That is mentioned in Surah Ali Imran, verse number 96. And also we have got some verse from Surah al-Baqarah where it is mentioned that Ibrahim alayhi salam was raising the foundation of Kaaba with Ismail alayhi salam. Alright, so the detractors would say the first mosque to be built was Masjid al-Haram, that is in Makkah, and the second was in Masjid al-Aqsa. And the time in between was 40 years. So the detractors would say Ibrahim alayhi salam built Masjid al-Haram at Makkah and Sulaiman alayhi salam built Masjid al-Aqsa at Jerusalem. And the time in between was not 40 years because these two prophets were hundreds of years apart. So here is my simple response to this. Going back to the definition of masjid, we understood that masjid can be any place where people gather to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where people gather to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It does not need to be a massive structure. It can also be a piece of land, maybe surrounded with some fence or maybe some stones, where people are worshipping. So inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to give you two interpretations of this. Both of them seem valid. Alright, so the first understanding of this 40 years gap is Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba at Mecca, and after 40 years one of his descendants, maybe Ishaq alayhi salam or Yaqub alayhi salam, built that land of Jerusalem into a masjid, i.e. a place of prostration, a place of worship. And when Sulaiman alayhi salam came centuries later, he built a massive structure on the same land where Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam were worshipping. So that means masjid was already there. Sulaiman alayhi salam made that into a massive structure, into a great building. Alright, so another interpretation pertaining to this 40 years gap is that Adam alayhi salam was the one who built masjid at Mecca, and 40 years later he made another masjid at Jerusalem, which we called Masjid al-Aqsa. So one may also ask, what about those verses of Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam were raising the foundation of Kaaba? Well, those verses can also be understood like that Kaaba was already built there before them. They were repairing that, or maybe like renovating or rebuilding that structure, because with the passage of time every structure needs to be renovated and needs some maintenance. So that verse can also mean that they were doing that instead of building that. And I think this opinion is also quite strong. Alright, so I hope I was able to explain these in clear enough manner, Bismillah ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. If you have got any question, suggestion, please do let me know in the comment section below, inshallah. And until we meet next time, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayh. Barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.